Good morning. Please find your seats and prepare yourself for this morning's service. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Columbia. I'm Phil Turner, and I'm their service leader for today. To those of you here with us in the sanctuary, please be advised that the service is being streamed over the web, and also remind you that we have a pre- and post-service Zoom event, which also runs the YouTube stream during the service. Now, make sure you read the announcements in your printed order of service, for those of you that are visitors. Especially be sure to read the weekly events that are emailed to you by our administrator each Thursday, as well as the Unigram and, of course, our website. In fact, it's a good idea to keep the website, our website, open as a tab to help keep up with the many things that are going on in our congregation. Please practice social distancing and mask wearing per board-approved guidelines. Don't take chances. We don't want to lose you or your loved ones. Today's beautiful flowers have been provided by David Bryan in memory of his mother, Cecile Irene Ellis Bryan, who was born 101 years ago on April 19th, 1921. At this time, I'd like to invite Linda Brennison and Bob Whitaker up for a word.
Hi, Bob.
Hi.
You made it just in time.
Ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Bob and I are here today to speak to you on behalf of the Denominational Connections Committee. And as you probably know, our congregation, the UUCC, is a member of the Unitarian Universalist Association, UUA for short, and it's made up of about 150,000 UUs in over 1,000 congregations, grouped in 5 geographic regions. In Article 2 of the bylaws, people who know me well know that I love bylaws, but in Article 2 of the bylaws of the UUA are found our current 7 principles, and I think we're all familiar with our 7 UU principles, which we are called to affirm and promote. These were first stated as 6 principles. I don't know if anybody knew that or not. First we had 6 principles, now we have 7. And that was at the time of the merger of the Unitarians and the Universalists. And they've been tweaked and added to over the past 60 years. Since ours is a living tradition, we are committed to regularly revisiting our principles and purposes to ensure that they are relevant. As we grow in understanding, we seek to see what is missing or no longer important, and that the language reflects our current core values. Bob?
The UUA board created the Article 2 Study Commission a few years ago, made up of members and leaders from various regions and backgrounds, and they charged the commission to review Article 2. They asked the commission to seek input from as many UUs as possible and to submit change proposals to the board in January 2023 for a possible first reading at the annual General Assembly of the UUA congregations in 2023, and that'll be in Pittsburgh. The commission was asked to seek to use inspirational, memorable, and poetic wording. Please note that no changes will happen until June 2024 at the earliest, and then only with a supermajority vote. That's 67% of the General Assembly delegates at that time. Depending on the number of members that we have, UUCC will send 3 or 4 delegates to that General Assembly, which is commonly called GA. The Article 2 Commission put out an online survey, and this is what we're here for. It covers 4 areas of inquiry: shared values, inspirations, purpose, and covenant. And the survey includes questions on all those areas, or each of those areas. And also you'll have an opportunity to share any input that you have and ask any follow-up questions you might have of the commission members.
Completing this survey enables you to express your opinions regarding important changes being proposed by our denomination. Please take advantage of this opportunity. The deadline to complete the survey is April 30th. Response rate so far is less than 1%, so your voice will be heard. And I'm going to add, Bob has put the link to the survey in our, I think it might be in the order of service today, but it's also been in our e-blast and other publications. So the link to the survey has been readily available for your use.
Linda just said what I was going to say, but if you have any questions, be sure to ask me, Linda, or any other member of the committee, Denominational Connections Committee. Thank you.
Sorry, I stole your thunder, Bob. Couldn't help it. I got excited about the survey.
I know.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda and Bob. And now let us center ourselves for service and remember to silence all electronic devices as we listen to the prelude.
This morning's musical prelude is For the Beauty, composed by Kevin McKinney, who is our member and friend and here with us today. I invite you, as you listen to his beautiful composition, to perhaps listen in the spirit of the direction he's given to the performer, reverent, mysterious, with a sense of wonder.
Thank you, Anna and Kevin. Please stand and join me in the congregational covenant as found in your order of service. Love is a doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve others in community. Thus we covenant with one another. Please be seated. Our minister is Reverend Stephen Robinson, and on those Sundays when Stephen is not in the pulpit, we present a variety of speakers from the congregation or from the wider community. Unitarian Universalism is a diverse and non-creedal religion. We are a covenantal religion, which means we don't have to believe the same in order to treat each other the same, with respect, equity, compassion, and dignity. Our community is based on deeds, not creeds. As Unitarian Universalists, we side with love embracing all people, regardless of age, color, race, socioeconomic status, physical ability, or religious background. We especially invite families and young children, and we even have a nursery. We are a welcoming congregation, which means we also embrace LGBTQ individuals. Now, we encourage everyone to wear name tags so that we may know each other better. Board members wear green name tags, and they always welcome your comments, questions, and suggestions. Now, I'd like to ask the members of our Board of Trustees, please stand that you may be recognized. Thank you. Now, at this time, we'd like to recognize any guests or visitors who are with us today. Visitors, please fill out a visitor card and put it in the collection plate. There should be one in the back of the chair in front of you. That information will enable us to send you our newsletter and emails about events. We promise no one will come knocking at your door. Now, visitors, if you're willing and able, please stand and share with us your name and where you're from, or if you have guests with them, please feel free to introduce them and wait for the microphone. Do we have any visitors? You do? This is his daily exercise, by the way.
Hello, I'm Katie Klein. I'm a graduate student at USC, so I just moved here last August. I attended a UU church now and then when I lived in Maine, so I was interested to see what you're doing down here.
Great. Welcome.
Welcome, Katie.
Good morning. My name is Lori, and I am the grandmother of these fine children. And I'm here visiting, and I've never attended a Unitarian church before, but I believe this is where I was supposed to be.
All right.
Great.
Hey.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Welcome, grandchildren.
I'll put with my toys.
Oh, yay.
Very cool.
Anyone else? When we're further along in our pandemic recovery, we will take time to greet each other, and I'll tell you that you're all welcome to stay afterwards and have refreshments in the social hall, but it's hopefully right on the horizon. We just have to look forward to it. The chalice is being lit today in the spirit of all who practice love as the doctrine of the congregation. And Ms. Liz is going to do the actual lighting. Spirit of light and love, come unto us. And now our musical meditation.
Our opening words today are from the poet Simon Armitage, who is the poet laureate for the nation of Ukraine. He wrote a poem reflecting on the current events in his country. It's war again. A family carries its family out of a prearranged house under a burning thatch. The next scene smacks of archived newsreel, platforms, and trains. Never again, never again. Toddlers passed over heads and shoulders, lifetimes stowed in luggage racks. It's war again. Unmistakable smoke on the near horizon, mistaken for thick fog. Fingers are crossed. An old blue tractor tows an armored tank into no man's land. It's the ceasefire hour. Godspeed the columns of winter coats and fur-lined hoods, the high wire walk over buckled bridges, managing cases and bags, balancing west and east. Godspeed. It's war again. The woman in black gives sunflower seeds to the soldier, insisting his marrow will be nourished by the national flower. In dreams, let bullets be birds, let cluster bombs burst into flocks. False news is news with the pity edited out. It's war again. An air raid siren can't fully mute the cathedral bells. Let's call that hope.
I share the national anthem of Ukraine by Chubinsky and Verbitsky, arranged by Daniel Light.
This time I want to take an opportunity before we move to our candles and celebrate the return of our Director of Religious Exploration, who Scott is standing in the back. Scott has been out on medical leave, and so we've often used this time in lighting candles to remember and hold our love for Scott. Also, believe we have religious exploration programs this morning, so the children are welcome to follow Mackenzie and Scott out. We come to a part of our service where we light candles for the joys and the concerns that we share with each other. There are always 7 candles in our foyer, so you can pick one up as you come in. And if you would like to share a joy or concern, come forward and briefly share that and light a candle and add it to this space. This time, I invite anyone who has a candle to come forward and share.
I'm Linda McLeod, and I'm lighting a candle in memory of Sam Nichols. Sam died of AIDS on June 16, 1995, and his ashes were scattered in the space of the restored AIDS Memorial Garden. This restored area will be dedicated today following our service. The framed poem that is displayed on this table was once painted on the wall in the original garden and will soon be hung in an appropriate place in our building. We invite you all to join this dedication and learn the story of Sam Nichols and the active role he played as a leader in the LGBTQ here at UUCC.
My name is Kate Heald, and at this point I'm known as what is a chronic visitor. I would like to light a candle in support of NAMI Mid-Carolina. I was the first paid employee of NAMI Mid-Carolina, which when I was in grad school, so it's a part-time position, but which was a very interesting position. For those of you who don't know, NAMI does two very important things. It supports families of those with mental illness, helping them find resources. And, oh, I didn't know you were here today. Okay, well, I won't steal your thunder. But also it provides empowerment and identity recognition for those with chronic mental health problems, and helps them advocate for themselves and hopefully live a better and more stable life in the world. All right, so I'm very glad that you're doing this, and you're going to hear more. And obviously the paid tradition has continued, which is a good thing.
Good morning. My name is Tom Clements, and I've been up here several times recently when someone has passed away, and I can see people looking at me thinking that might have happened again. But thankfully, no. And I want to, this is words of joy, but also thanks to the entire congregation. As you may know, the Social Action Committee encourages donations to the winter shelter for homeless, which is down on Calhoun Street by the water treatment plant and by the Riverfront Park. If you're ever driving around and you see Aflac or the Marionette Theater, wind your way to the warehouses, which are the winter shelter. But I want to thank everybody, and there's too many of you to thank by name, who donated clothes in a very consistent manner, starting last October, more or less, and until recently. And I want to give a special thanks to those of you, including Ann and Deb Matherly and Laura Hartwig, who had clothing tables on a weekly basis or even twice a week. And it was one of the main avenues for the homeless, adult homeless, to get clothing, because a lot of them don't go to the day center at transitions. There were probably over 150 people using the shelter at the height of the winter. It was open for the last time this season, which closed on April 1st. There were maybe 50 people, and people would often say to me when it was closed, which was the morning temperature below 40 degrees, where am I going to go? So we would know that all these people, they're sleeping in the bushes or in a parking lot, and the police are going to find them and move them on. So thanks very much for your support of the winter shelter, for our clothing drives, and for volunteering there, and in general for the work of transitions and supporting the homeless. But Deb and her husband, they came so many times, so special thanks to you. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Lee Mingy, and the proud mother of our 55-year-old daughter today, Monica. And later today, in a phone call, I will be telling her that she could be our neighbor at Still Hopes. Isn't that going to be an exciting news to share? But in addition, a serious purpose of selecting a candle today, we are just back from the UK, and we arrived just as Putin crossed the border into the Ukraine. And we were so amazed at the BBC coverage and their very heroic reporters who were coming up out of a sheltered position in order to report on the horror ongoing. And if you look at a map, you will see that, and you may already know this, but southwestern Ukraine borders northwestern Romania, which is the Transylvanian region. And as you know, our partner church is in Transylvania. And these folks, Unitarians, amongst others, are welcoming refugees from Ukraine. In fact, Zolt, our partner church minister, has turned his apartment at his high school, where he is vice principal, over to 11 Ukrainians. And what is happening in Bystrica or throughout the Transylvanian region, I don't know, but I do know refugees are coming, which brings me to the last item I want to be sure to mention, namely that on April the 30th, you will be seeing in the Unigram, the Partner Church Committee is having our fundraiser, which has not happened for a couple of years. We will be treated to a lovely concert by Anna, a classical concert, and we hope that you will support this and come and be with us.
I'm Deb Matherly, and I couldn't let Tom's statement go. The reason he knows that there was a table maybe once a week is that he was there basically every night that the shelter was open, and he was helping with security and with helping people find their way and everything else. So he's really the hero here for getting other people involved. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bob Gillespie, and this is going to be in memory of two good friends who have passed away in the past few months, one this week. As it happens, they were two guys who went to work for me when I was in my first newspaper job in Orangeburg in 1976. In the 2 years I was there, I brought in two people. One was a lifelong friend of my brother, Gage Blakely, who stayed long enough to become a sports writer, even though when we hired him, he didn't know how to type, which was a little bit of a hindrance. But he learned, became pretty good at it, later joined the Air Force, had a 25-year career, rose to the rank of lieutenant colonel. and moved to North Carolina to be near his grandchildren in the last few years. About a year and a half ago, he learned he was diagnosed with ALS and was looking at a pretty grim time ahead. And then about first part of this year, he suffered a heart attack and died, which his wife said, I hate to lose him, but better that way than the way he might have gone. So this is partly for him. There was another fella who I met in my freshman year at South Carolina at the university, Skip Latt, who later came to work for the paper in Orangeburg. He came into the news department. When I departed to go to Charleston, he took my job as a sports editor, stayed for a while, went to Charleston, later ended up working for the Associated Press in Nashville, and was living there. And this past week, he suffered a fall in the home, traumatic brain injury, spinal injuries, and was put on life support. And finally, they decided to let him go on Thursday or Friday, I'm not real sure. So anyway, so this is for the two of them, two good friends in the business, two good friends out of the business.
Good morning, I'm Jane Lothar. My husband, J.P. Flood, lost his sister yesterday afternoon. So this candle is for the Flood family and for her 3 sons, the Watson family.
And the final candle we light are for the silent concerns that we bring into this place. Maybe too intimate to share even in this close community. I invite you to take just a second, take a deep breath, and remember all that you've heard and felt and experienced as we've shared. Thank you. At this time, as we prepare for our offering, our Share the Plate recipient, you've already been introduced to, NAMI, Mid-Carolina. We are so delighted that Zenithia Brown is here to share and invite you up to share about the good work.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. And yes, the paid employee thing did continue. I am the executive director of NAMI Mid-Carolina, which sounds super fancy until you realize I'm the only employee. So it continued, but it didn't expand. But NAMI Mid-Carolina, oh, I'm sorry, let me take this off. Okay. NAMI Mid-Carolina is a local affiliate of the National Alliance on Mental Illness. As you heard, we provide services, mental health services for family members of people living with mental health conditions and for people living with mental illness. We provide free support groups, we provide free classes, we come out and we talk to the community about suicide prevention, understanding mental health conditions, crisis de-escalation. Everything we do is free. But one thing that I like to, emphasize is that everything we do as a family. We've got people that have been in our support groups for years. They may not be in crisis right now, but they get that comfort that they need from those support groups and from others in the support groups. I'm a member of one. I live with anxiety and depression, so I'm having a good time standing up here talking in front of everyone right now. But I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy that you all have chosen NAMI Mid-Carolina as your recipient. And I have to say, and I know you've heard it a million times, right now, during COVID, during the pandemic, people need us more than ever. And this is the way that we're able to keep our services free. They're free to the public, but there is a cost to us. And because of help from people in the community like you, members of our walk, we're able to continue to offer our services for free. So thank you so much for all that you do. Appreciate it. Was that 3 minutes? Okay.
And we thank you, Executive Director Brown, good to say that out loud, for coming and representing, sharing about the good work. And it is a pleasure of ours to be a partner with you in that good work. This time, I invite our ushers to come forward and receive our morning offering.
Our offertory music is Rising Green by Carolyn McDade, arranged by Jim Scott. My blood doth rise in the roots of yon oak. Her sap doth run in my veins. Boundless my soul like the open sky, where the stars forever have lain. Where the stars, where the stars, where the stars forever have lain. My hands hold the weavings of time without end. My sight as deep as the sea. Beating my heart sounds the measure of old, that of love's eternity. Rising green, rising green, rising green to bring a new day.
Receive this offering today, a symbol of our commitment to the good work of the UCC. The calendar tells us that spring is here, and the earth around us is reminding us that spring is coming. Flowers are blooming, grass is greening, trees are coming back to life, so to speak. I have to admit, it's hard to fully lean into the joy of spring when there are so many that are still in a season of winter in their lives. Even though the calendar is telling us that rebirth and hope and renewal is upon us, emotionally, we can still trudge through the bleakness of winter. Our spring budding hearts have to take pause this morning, as we have in our service, for the families of those who have been killed in the Ukraine, the many who have been injured, displaced from home, and forever affected by the trauma of war. The news and many experts tell us that we are getting on the other side of a global pandemic, but as we emerge, we have to recognize those who are still in a winter of their lives, impacted by death, still suffering from long COVID, still suffering from the isolation and the traumatic emotional damage that we've been through over the past couple of years. The feeling of winter, we know, can impose itself on any given day, as families of the Tanglewood Middle School in Greenville learned on Thursday. A school that is literally preparing for spring break, and the excitement saw one of its 7th graders use a gun to shoot another 7th grader, killing a classmate. A culture obsessed with violence, and particularly gun violence, can usher in the harshness of winter on any given day. So we turn to the earth to teach us how to prepare for spring and pay attention to how to appropriate the grief, the winter, the pain, the loss that has been so much a part of our lives and continues to on any given day. As always, the earth can teach us so much about transitioning from winter, moving into the season of spring. One of those lessons is the formation of what we call humus. And I have to admit that there was a lot of confusion when I sent in the sermon title of a recipe for humus. There's about, I think, 8 people, is that right, Richard, on that email exchange, and all of a sudden it evolved into a conversation about hummus and hummus recipes and what you dip it in and so we have to center ourselves back on humus, and I, of course, was playing off of that as well. Humus is derived from the same root from where we get the word humility. Humus forms from the decay of organic matter that has died throughout this season of winter. Because of its chemical compound, humus varies depending on what actually is decomposed to make it up. So it's hard to really describe and define what it actually is. But we know it when we see it, we know it when we feel it, and we know it when we smell it, right? And we definitely know it when we step in it. I was walking through a field one day as a little boy with my grandfather, and all of a sudden as we were walking, I felt the coldness on my shoe, and I had on rubber boots, so I thought, why am I feeling this? And I looked back, and my boot had stepped in a nice pile of humus and stayed there. And I just kind of walked out of my boot. You know, that's the kind of mud that winter has right now. Have you experienced that mud before, that spongy, can hold your boot in place kind of mud? And I was disgusted by it. I picked up my boot, my sock was muddy and wet. I picked up my boot and was shaking it off. And my grandfather came over and said, "What is going on?" And I said, "I hate this mud. I hate it." My grandfather was the son of a Cherokee mother who was handed off to an Anglo family as her family migrated west. And she taught him things that are unspeakable, it seems, at times. And I will never forget. Well, I can't say that. I can't say I'll never forget. Because in preparing this sermon on humus, it reminded me of this event. And I visited it again in my history in a powerful way. But I remember, I thought my grandfather was kind of lost it that day, but now I realize something. He reached down and he grabbed the mud off my shoe, off my boot, and he said, "Don't hate this. This is the good stuff." And he took it and he rubbed it into his hands and arms like lotion. And I thought, I knew he was off as a kid. Now I know that he was on as I reflect back on that as an adult. Don't be mad at this. This is the good stuff. The thought to rub it into your skin and know it is good stuff indeed. One expert I read said that the survival of our species and the survival of our entire ecosystem depends on the top 10 inches of the soil at this time of year. And the health and the stability of, almost said hummus, of humus. Y'all, if I say hummus, just know I mean humus, all right? I've done that so much. Humus forms as any organic matter has died, mostly from plant life, and it gets broken down by millions of microbes and insects, and they break down into some key elements of phosphorus, potassium, and nitrogen, many other key elements. Humus also breaks down and absorbs the carbon in organic matter, which is then fed to new plant life. And unfortunately, we are facing a crisis a crisis of the loss of this spongy foundation of life. Climate change has increased rains, which tends to erode away the humus faster than it can be created, and it ends up in the bottom of waterways feeding algae. Deforestation, particularly clear cutting that cleans up everything, leaves soil exposed to the sun and also leaves nothing to be broken down, no dead leaves or limbs. My Facebook page in the community, we often share, like, can someone recommend this? And someone was cutting a tree, wanting a tree removed in their yard, and one person they recommended said, if you hire this person, when they leave, you won't even remember the tree was ever there. I thought, how sad is that? I'd like to know it was at least there at one point, but we have an idea of what it means to clean up an area and make it prettier and healthier. And actually, as deforestation has done in cleaning up everything and not leaving things to decompose, they have really compromised the health and well-being of everything around them. The soil is exposed to the sun and nothing gets broken down. The chemicals we use in farming, particularly pesticides, compromise the soil. And the basic building block of life, this humus, has to be added to the endangered list at this point. And therefore, we must make changes. And the Green Committee says, amen, right? Humus is a close kin to the word human as well, which reminds us that we are connected to the earth. And hope and life bursts forth from this healthy humus. You and I must acknowledge our losses. We must learn from nature, not clean up our grief. And recognize that grief work requires patience and work. Leaves and limbs and grass are not transformed into humus immediately. It takes time, patience, and work. And inviting these feelings, these emotions that we have, these experiences of loss, these things that we have grieved over the past winter of our lives, allow them their space to do their work. Anytime I think about inviting those emotions in, I'm reminded of Rumi's poem, The Guest House, where Rumi writes that every human being is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes from an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still treat each guest honorably, for they may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. As we are coming out of our winter in so many ways of our lives, not just in our earth, but in our experience of life, we must grieve appropriately, and we must hold a space for others to grieve appropriately and be patient for the work that is happening beneath the surface. You and I also have to become a holding structure for the life-giving blossom of work and life and love. One of the important components of the humus is its structure. You see, we in modern technology can add fertilizer to the soil that then adds some of these key components that we talked about, the phosphorus, potassium, and nitrogen. We can put those things into the soil and do it in some revolutionary ways. What we can't mimic is the structure of the humus. Humus provides this holding structure for the entire soil. And if you look under a microscope, you see the sponginess of humus that holds water and nutrients and absorbs it in a way that creates an environment, an appropriate environment for healthy bacteria to grow and to function and for the soil to be alive. You and I have the potential to be that kind of structure in our world. We can be a place here at the UUCC that is a holding structure, a spongy existence for the key elements of love, justice, and affirmation that are needed in our culture for health and growth. The poet that we read, Simon Armitage, says, "Let's call that hope. The cathedral bells not drowned out by the air raid sirens." We have to keep the UUCC bells ringing here. We have one in the back. We need to let it ring in our community. I love how one scientist described humus as the most generous creature in the world, because once it absorbs a nutrient or creates it through its own process, it opens itself up and gives it away, empties itself out. It doesn't hold anything for long, but rather gives of itself so that life and love can flourish all around us. Every injection of green into the landscape, every burst of color from a bloom provides evidence of the generous act of the humus, opening itself up and giving itself to the moment. In an age where you and I are judged by the bottom line and productivity, by our ability to accumulate, this lesson invites us to pour ourselves into each moment, into each other, into each experience of life, to empty ourselves on a regular basis in an act of generosity and gratitude. Today, I am thankful for the humus. Whether we are emotionally or psychologically ready for spring, the earth has done the work to make spring possible.
I invite you to stand and join in singing our closing hymn, number 63, Spring Has Now Unwrapped the Flowers. It is in your gray hymnal, and I invite you to sing with your mask on. Spring has now unwrapped the flowers, May is fast reviving, life and all the growing powers toward the light is striving. On the iron touch of cold, winter time and frost time, seedlings working through the mold, now make up for lost time. Herb and plant that winter long slumbered at their leisure, now be stirring green and strong, finding growth and pleasure. All the world with beauty fills, gold look green enhancing, flowers make glee among the hills, set the meadows dancing.
As you remain standing, I tried to do some creative words to capture the experience of humus as we extinguish our chalice. I don't think any of them work, but I'm going to try them anyway and see what you think. So one would be, as we extinguish our chalice, let the UUCC aroma of decompose. See, it doesn't work. I was trying to think of a way that the smell of the UUCC could impact our neighborhood, and that didn't really work. I also thought, let the UUCC be a place of mud where people get stuck and aren't able to leave, and that didn't really work. So I'm just going to say, as we leave this gathering today and extinguish our chalice, let's commit ourselves to being the humus of our culture.
I invite you to join in singing our congregational benediction.
Thank you for being a part of our service. Just a quick reminder that we, immediately after the service, for those who are willing, will be gathering down at the AIDS Memorial Garden for a rededication of that space back. So I look forward to seeing you down there. It'll be a very, very brief service. Thanks for being here.